Item 5 is for discussion and for possible action, update on the report 2030 legislation session by our none other than Warren Hardy. We appreciate you coming up here, Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pleasure to be here. Chairman, members of the board, Warren Hardy, I will say representing the Water District. I'm still at the legislature. It's a pleasure to be here to do a report. Really, this report is sort of remarkable by what's not in it. I think in the 25 years I've been involved in the legislature, there's probably less legislation dealing with water-related matters than any session I've ever dealt with, although we have two pieces of legislation that were of interest and concern to us that we introduced, and I'll talk about those briefly. And well, actually, let me do this. Let me just talk about some of the other things that occurred that are of some interest. The one thing I will be doing over the course of the next, hopefully I'll have it by the end of this week, a report to the staff basically outlining all the legislation that passed that might affect or impact the district that we ought to be aware of. Most of that won't be related to water-related issues, but some of it will be related to public records, open meeting law, some employment issues that'll need to be, the district will need to be aware of, and then we'll take whatever time is necessary to spend with the staff to get additional information on on that legislation. So that'll be available to the staff, I'm hoping, by the end of this week. And that'll be a more comprehensive report that we'll also provide to the board members, so you're aware of issues that across the board I think we want to be aware of in case there's some requirement for us. There were a couple of pieces of legislation that didn't pass that I think is probably good. There was a bill, and I was looking for Aaron and I were trying to remember the bill number, and I couldn't find it, but there was a bill to put all water districts in Nevada under the Public Utility Commission jurisdiction. That was a bill we obviously engaged on early to make sure that we were exempt out. We also looked after our good friends of the Moapa Valley Water District too, to make sure that they were exempted out of the bill based on Aaron's conversation with them. So that bill ultimately didn't pass, but very early on we made sure we were exempt from that. It would have been problematic, I think, to say the least, for a small water district like the Virgin Valley Water District to have to go through all the regulatory burden of the PUC, and probably no reason for it. There were two committees that were probably, or two bills that were probably a mixed blessing depending on how they would have come out, although neither one of them passed. Either Senate Bill 499, which would have created a standing legislative commission on water issues in the state of Nevada, and the other one was Assembly Bill 301, which would have created a standing commission or committee on public land issues in Nevada. Neither of those bills passed. There was another bill that did not pass that would have required the state engineer to counsel with the local water districts on any issue that the state engineer, any decision the state engineer made. That bill again didn't pass. So again, and these were bills we didn't directly engage on, but watched sort of peripherally. The direction I got from staff when we submitted these bills for review was to monitor them. And for those of you who might not remember the process we had, every piece of legislation that came up that potentially impacted the water district, I sent to staff for their review, and then they would send comments back to me on our position. And again, there was just so little that directly impacted water districts this time. Several, again, that impacted, I have to say, bad pieces of legislation, in my opinion, that impacted employment, those sorts of things. There was a bill, for example, that would have required, I won't say it's bad, but it certainly is a burden on small districts and small employers. It would have required standing for maternity, or excuse me, for care of a spouse, would have received public standing as a, what's the word I'm looking for, the protected class, which would have been a real, I think, significant burden on small employers. So there were a lot of legislation like that which we will get. That one didn't pass, but we'll provide that to the staff so they're fully aware of it. So the two bills that we really focused on this session were obviously Assembly Bill 131, which made the charter change that we were seeking, That turned out to be a very interesting bill. We surprisingly, I think I've done several pieces of legislation on charter changes in my career. We did get some opposition to the bill, which I'd never really seen before. But there was some communication from the community to legislators on that bill. But at the end of the day, we were able to resolve all those concerns, and the bill passed unanimously out of both houses, making the changes that we wanted to incorporate with regard to all board members being elected. So at the end of the terms, I think December of 2014, all seats will expire. We had several amendments or changes to the bill because it didn't come out right the first time. That's not uncommon that bill drafters come back and they don't fully understand what you're trying to do. The first time it came out and all terms would expire after 4 years, which would have meant every 4 years the entire board was going to explain, no, we want them to be staggered. Then the second issue was it didn't come out very clear that we wanted the Bunkerville people, representatives to be elected by the people of Bunkerville and the Mesquite people to be elected by the people of Mesquite, so we needed a second amendment for that. So there were numerous amendments, but at the end of the day, the bill came out the way we wanted. The way it will work is that all board members will be elected in the 2014 general election of the county. Then when the board members are seated, they will by lot select 2 members to be 2-year terms. And the other members will be 4-year terms. But there will be one from Bunkerville that is a 2-year term, one from Mesquite that is a 2-year term. That was another amendment. We had to come in at the very last minute because the bill didn't reflect that. So by lot, it could have meant that both members from Bunkerville were 2, or both were the 2-year members were from Mesquite. So we had to clarify that. So I think the bill's clean. I think it's exactly the way we want it now, and I'd be happy to stop now and answer any questions about, because I know there were some that when Aaron and I were talking, if there's any questions about how the charter change bill went or how it will impact this. Just want to think so. Pretty clear. Okay.
Good job.
I think it came out the way we wanted to. The second one was Assembly Bill 382, and incidentally, I want to thank Assemblyman Hardy for sponsoring both of these bills and doing a great job for us on both of these bills. Assembly Bill 382 is the bill to clarify the habitat funding. There were a couple of issues. The first is that the laws that currently existed required or mandated that really the Clark County was the only entity that could collect those fees. They had structurally done it, as you all know, by collecting fees out in all the various cities and then submitting them to Clark County. So we had to clarify 2 things. One, that the money could be collected by the individual entity. And then when we got one of the bill drafts, it came back, we read it, we re-reviewed it, and we realized we weren't very clear on the fact that Mesquite could collect the fee, but could also keep the fee. So the original draft of the legislation clarified that we could collect it, but there was another part of the law that said it had to be submitted to Clark County. So we asked for a further amendment to clarify that yes, we can collect the fee, and yes, we can keep the fee for our habitat study. The other issue that came up was Clark County came forward, and some of the other entities came forward and said, look, the statute currently limits it to $550 per acre. We don't think that's enough. We would like to have some language in the bill that says we can collect an amount that's appropriate. Well, I talked to Assemblyman Hardy as well as the staff, and we felt that that wasn't something we wanted to do in this legislation. We felt it was appropriate to leave it capped at $550 per acre. I told the county, I told the other entities, if at some point you guys feel like you need to come back to the legislature to collect more, then you ought to do that. But I don't think we're going to do that as part of our legislation, because we wanted it to be very clear what the intent was, that we would have one fee and that it would be no more than $550 an acre. So that's the way that bill came out. And I think we got good cooperation from the other entities. I think there'll probably be a legislative effort in the future to go back and increase that fee, but now under the statute we are separate. We are a separate entity and will be treated separately under our plan. And I should peripherally mention that the conversations, the discussions, I missed 2 of the meetings while I was in Carson City but I did attend the last meeting in the Habitats group, and those conversations are going very well. And it looks as though we're going to be able to accomplish our full objective there in terms of getting one fee for the community and one plan. They have acknowledged basically that there's not going to be a recovery portion to it, which should keep the fee significantly lower. So that's my report on the legislature. I'm happy to answer any questions about the specifics to the district or any questions about what occurred in the legislature in general.
I talked to Darcy from the county. She's over the, she's kind of the environmental. Yeah. Anyway, she commented on how well you were doing as far as trying to push this thing forward and work with them, and she felt like the plan was going to be a good one and it was going to be great for the valley and everybody involved. So
I very much appreciate that feedback, and they've been cooperative well, as is NODA, everybody. Once we all sort of got on the same page, and we were very clear with them about what we were looking for and what we were willing to accept and what we weren't willing to accept. I think there was some confusion before, and once we sort of laid that line in the sand, everybody started to pull on the same end of the rope, and I think the product's going to be good. But thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Good job, I say.
Any other questions? Thank you for the opportunity and honor of representing the water district.
Okay, thanks, Warren. Thank you, Warren.